What if the answer to Montreal's second-line center problem has been staring us in the face this entire time? And it involves making a move that could either accelerate their rebuild or completely derail it. A proposed trade from Heavy Sports. Cole Shelton has Canadiens fans buzzing, and the implications are absolutely massive for both Montreal's immediate future and their long-term championship aspirations. Picture this scenario: the Canadiens send Kirby Dach in a 2026 second-round pick to Utah in exchange for Nick Schmaltz and a 2026 fifth-rounder. On paper, it's the kind of deal that makes perfect sense for Montreal's current needs. Just delivered a career-high 63 points and would instantly solve their glaring second-line center void. But dig deeper, and this trade proposal reveals fascinating layers about risk management, player development, and the delicate balance between patience and aggression in a rebuild. The timing couldn't be more critical for Montreal. After their surprising playoff return last season, marking their first postseason appearance since 2021, expectations have shifted dramatically. The fan base tasted success again, and suddenly the pressure is mounting to capitalize on that momentum. Kent Hughes finds himself in that precarious position where standing pat might feel like moving backward, yet making the wrong move could undo years of careful planning. Schmaltz represents everything Montreal desperately needs right now. At 28 years old, he's entering his prime years with a skill set perfectly suited for today's NHL. His 63-point campaign wasn't a fluke. It was the culmination of steady development and increased responsibility. He's a natural playmaker who thrives in transition, exactly the type of player who could unlock Ivan Demidov's offensive potential on that crucial second line. Imagine the possibilities of pairing Schmaltz's vision and passing ability with Demidov's goal-scoring instincts. That combination could become one of the most dangerous duos in the Eastern Conference. The fit makes even more sense when you consider Montreal's current roster construction. They have the defensive foundation with players like Mike Matheson, anchoring the blue line, and their goaltending situation has stabilized significantly. What they're missing is that reliable offensive catalyst who can drive play and create opportunities for line mates. Schmaltz has proven he can be that player, averaging over 20 minutes per game and demonstrating the kind of consistency that championship teams require from their top six forwards. But here's where this trade gets complicated and, frankly, a little heartbreaking from Montreal's perspective. Kirby Dach represents everything this organization has preached about patience and development. The former third overall pick arrived in Montreal with enormous potential, and while his journey has been frustrating at times, he's still just 24 years old. Trading him now would essentially be admitting that their development system couldn't unlock his talent, which raises uncomfortable questions about organizational capability. The injury concerns surrounding Dach can't be ignored in this evaluation. His availability has been inconsistent, and durability questions have followed him throughout his young career. From Utah's perspective, they'd be gambling on their ability to keep him healthy and maximize his considerable upside. For Montreal, moving him would eliminate that risk entirely while acquiring a proven commodity in Schmaltz. It's the classic debate between potential and production, and both sides have compelling arguments. Utah's motivation in this hypothetical deal reveals their own strategic thinking. They're clearly in asset accumulation mode, willing to take on projects like Dach in hopes of unlocking higher-end talent. The Hockey Mammoth have positioned themselves as a destination for players who need fresh starts, and Dach certainly fits that profile. Their abundance of young offensive talent could provide the perfect environment for him to finally reach his ceiling, while Montreal would benefit from Utah's patience in developing him. The financial implications add another layer of complexity to this proposal. Schmaltz carries a reasonable cap hit that wouldn't handcuff Montreal's future flexibility. Dach's potential requires significant investment without guaranteed returns. In today's salary cap environment, paying for production rather than potential often represents the safer path, especially for teams trying to establish themselves as playoff contenders. From a strategic standpoint, this trade would signal a fundamental shift in Montreal's approach. Instead of waiting for internal development to solve their center problem, they'd be acknowledging that external acquisition might be necessary. Hughes has built his reputation on patience and long-term thinking, but even the most patient general manager must recognize when acceleration becomes necessary to maintain momentum. The ripple effects throughout Montreal's lineup would be immediate and significant. Moving Dach would create opportunities for other prospects to step into larger roles, while Schmaltz's arrival would stabilize their second line for the foreseeable future. That kind of lineup certainty could be exactly what their young players need to take the next step in their development. Sometimes the best development environment is one where roles are clearly defined. Players can focus on executing rather than competing for ice time. The Western Conference context makes this deal even more intriguing. Utah is clearly building for the future, while Montreal is trying to bridge the gap between rebuilding and competing. Schmaltz would be leaving a developing situation for one where immediate contributions are expected and rewarded. That kind of environment change often brings out the best in veteran players who thrive under pressure and responsibility. Consider the alternatives Montreal faces if they don't make this type of move. The free agent market for centers is notoriously thin, and trade options become increasingly limited as teams recognize their own needs. Waiting another season for internal development might mean missing a crucial window where their young core is ready to take significant steps forward. Sometimes the best long-term decision is making a short-term commitment to acceleration. The psychological impact on the locker room would be substantial, regardless of which direction Montreal chooses. Trading Dach would send a message that production trumps potential, which could motivate other young players to elevate their games. Alternatively, keeping him demonstrates organizational faith in their development system and patience with player growth. Both messages have merit, but timing determines which approach serves the team better. Utah's perspective in this deal reveals their confidence in their development capabilities and their willingness to bet on upside over immediate production. They're essentially saying they believe they can succeed where Montreal has struggled, which either represents bold confidence or dangerous overestimation of their abilities. Time would ultimately determine which assessment proves accurate. The draft pick swap in this proposal might seem insignificant, but it actually tells us everything about how both organizations value risk. Montreal would be trading future uncertainty for present clarity, while Utah would be betting that their patience with Dach could pay dividends that make the pick downgrade irrelevant. These small details often determine whether deals get completed or fall apart at the negotiating table. This trade proposal perfectly encapsulates the challenges facing Montreal as they navigate their transition from rebuilding to competing. Do they trust their development process with players like Dach? Or do they acknowledge that sometimes external solutions provide better outcomes? The answer could define their franchise trajectory for the next several seasons. Whether this specific deal happens or not, it represents the type of decision-making Montreal will face repeatedly as they build towards sustained success. The Canadiens have done the hard work of accumulating assets and developing prospects. Now comes the equally challenging task of knowing when to cash in those assets for immediate improvements. The Schmaltz-Dach trade proposal might just be the perfect test case for Hugh's vision of how this rebuild should evolve. What's your take on this potential blockbuster? Would you pull the trigger on trading Dach's potential for Schmaltz's production? Or should Montreal continue betting on their development system? Let me know in the comments what you think about this fascinating trade scenario. And don't forget to hit that like button if you want more deep dives into the moves that could reshape the Canadiens' future.